Quickly now, close the door behind you. The storm's getting worse. I can hear the wind howling through the college corridors. Here, take this seat by the fire. That's better. Let me pour you some tea. Snowberry and juniper. Been brewing it all evening. Careful, it's hot. Now, I'm glad you're here, because I need to talk to someone about something I saw last week. Something that's been haunting me. I was up in the tower, couldn't sleep as usual, looking out over the tundra, and I saw a giant. Just standing there in a blizzard, alone, not moving, not herding mammoths, not building anything, just standing in the snow for hours. And I thought to myself, that's exactly what I need to tell someone about. Because everyone thinks they know what giants are. Monsters, brutes, things to be avoided or killed. But I've spent 40 years watching them, really watching them. And I need to tell you what I've seen. You're going to learn tonight that giants aren't what you think they are. They're not monsters. They're people. Simple people, yes, but people nonetheless. They have language, they have culture, they have society and rituals and emotions. And they're dying, disappearing from Skyrim one by one, and nobody cares enough to notice. Nobody except me. And maybe now, you. So, settle in. I'm going to tell you everything I know about the loneliest creatures in Skyrim. The giants. Where do I even start? I suppose I should start with the first time I really saw one. Not just glimpsed from a distance, but truly saw one. I was 43 years old. That's nearly 40 years ago now. Gods, time moves strangely. I was traveling between ruins. This was back when my knees still worked properly, making my way from Mzulft to Alftand. Terrible route. I don't recommend it. The terrain is rough, and there are trolls everywhere. But I was young enough to think myself invincible. I came over a ridge near midday. The sun was high, which was good because I could see clearly. And there, in the valley below me, was a giant. My first thought was terror. Pure, primal fear. Because giants are massive, you understand. 12 feet tall, some of them even larger. This one had to be 13 feet if he was an inch. His club was the size of a tree trunk. He could have pulverized me without breaking stride. But he wasn't looking at me. Hadn't noticed me at all. He was with his mammoths. 3 of them, I counted, and he was tending them. That's the only word for it. Tending. He was checking their tusks, running his enormous hands along their sides, speaking to them softly. I could hear him from where I stood. Low, rumbling sounds, almost like humming. The mammoths had these bells around their necks, and they jingled whenever they moved. Pleasant sound, actually. Reminded me of wind chimes. I stood there for an hour, maybe longer, just watching. The giant moved so gently. His hands, each one larger than my head, touched those mammoths with such care. He wasn't rough, wasn't aggressive. He was a shepherd. That's what I realized standing on that ridge. This wasn't a monster. This was a person, doing his work, taking care of his animals, living his life. The smell hit me, even from that distance. Mammoths have a particular musk to them, earthy,
strong. You can smell a mammoth herd from half a mile away on a still day. And there was another smell too. Something I later learned was the giant himself. Not unpleasant, just different. Like leather and smoke, and something else I've never been able to identify. I watched him paint something on one of the rocks near his camp. Symbols. Careful, deliberate strokes, using what looked like crushed minerals mixed with mammoth fat. I was too far away to see exactly what he painted, but I could see the concentration in his movements, the intentionality. This wasn't random. This meant something to him. That day changed everything for me. Because up until that moment, I'd believed what everyone believes. Giants are dangerous animals, beasts to be avoided. But I saw the truth that day, and I've spent the last 40 years learning more, watching, observing, documenting what others won't see because they're too afraid to look. Let me tell you what everyone gets wrong about giants. Please, this is important, because the misconceptions aren't just wrong, they're deadly. Deadly to the giants, I mean. These misunderstandings are why giants are disappearing and nobody cares. First misconception. People think giants attack unprovoked. They don't. I've watched giants for decades, and I've never seen one attack someone who wasn't encroaching on their territory. Never. You want to know why so many travelers get killed by giants? Because they wander right into giant camps without realizing it. Or they get too close to the mammoths. The mammoths are family to them, you understand? Would you stand by while someone harassed your family? Giants have warning behaviors, clear ones, if you're paying attention. When a giant feels threatened, first thing he does is stomp. 1 foot hard. Makes the ground shake. That's warning number 1. If you don't leave, he'll raise his club, hold it high over his head. That's warning number 2. If you're still there after that, well, you've made your choice. He's going to defend his home. I watched this happen once. I was observing a camp near Whiterun. This was maybe 20 years ago. A traveler, some merchant from Cyrodiil, came walking right through the area. Didn't even see the giant until he was practically on top of him. The giant did exactly what I just described. Stomp, club raise. But this merchant, smart man, he saw the warning. Put his hands up, backed away slowly, took a different route. The giant watched him go, then went right back to what he was doing. No aggression, no chase. Just a defense of territory. But that's not the story people tell, is it? They tell the story about the merchant who got launched into the sky, the one who
ignored the warnings. Because that's more exciting. That's more monstrous. Nobody wants to hear about the reasonable giant who just wanted to be left alone. Second misconception. Giants are stupid. They're animals, people say. No more intelligent than a troll or a saber cat. Wrong. Completely wrong. Let me give you evidence. Tool use. Yes, they have clubs. Everyone knows about the clubs. But look closer. Those clubs are worked, shaped. They're not just tree branches. I've examined abandoned giant camps, and I've found other tools too. Scrapers made from bone, cutting implements, even what looks like primitive needles, probably for working mammoth hide into clothing or shelter. And the painted symbols. Those symbols appear in every giant camp I've ever studied, every single one. Different camps have different symbols, but there are patterns, recurring elements. That suggests communication across groups, or at least a shared cultural foundation. I've spent years trying to decode them. Haven't succeeded yet, but I've noticed things.
Certain symbols appear more frequently after seasonal changes. Others seem connected to mammoth births or deaths. It's not random. It's intentional. It's meaning. I have a theory, and I know this will sound strange, but I think those symbols are proto-writing, the very earliest stage of written language, the kind of thing humans had thousands of years ago before we developed proper alphabets. If giants had time, if they weren't being pushed to extinction, they might develop it further. But they don't have time. We're killing them before they get the chance. And social structures. Oh, this is important. Giants aren't solitary by nature. They're not like bears or trolls who live alone and only meet to mate. Giants have groups. Families, maybe. I'm not sure of the exact relationships, but I've watched the same giant camps for years, and I see patterns. Older giants teaching younger ones. I saw this myself near Dawnstar. An old giant, massive, probably ancient, showing a younger one how to paint symbols. The young one tried, made mistakes, and the old one corrected him. Gently, patient as a saint. That's teaching. That's culture being passed down. I've even observed what looks like hierarchy. In groups of 3 or more giants, there's usually one who makes decisions, chooses when the group moves, settles disputes over the mammoths. The others defer to him. Or her, I suppose, though I've never been certain how to tell giant gender at a distance. But there's clear social organization. That's not animal behavior. That's society. Third misconception, and this one bothers me the most. People think all giants are the same, interchangeable, like they're all just copies of each other. But they're not. They're individuals with personalities, preferences, behavioral differences. There's a giant I've been watching for 15 years now. I see him from the college tower with a farsight spell. His camp is about 3 miles.
Northeast. I call him Thornheart. Not his real name, obviously. I have no idea what giants call themselves. But he has this massive scar across his chest that looks like thorns. So, Thornheart. Thornheart is gentler than most giants, more patient. I've watched him with his mammoths, and he never strikes them, never gets frustrated when they wander off. Some giants will give a mammoth a swat with the flat of their hand when it misbehaves. Nothing cruel, but firm, like you'd correct a dog. Not Thornheart. He just guides them back, gently, persistent as the tide. But I've watched other giants who are quicker to anger, more aggressive with intruders, more protective of their territory. One giant near Whiterun, I watched him chase off a saber cat that got too close to his camp. Chased it for half a mile, absolutely furious. Thornheart would have just scared it off with a stomp. Different personalities, different approaches to the same problem. This matters, because when you recognize individuals, you can't dismiss them as monsters. You have to see them as people. And once you see them as people, everything changes. Let me tell you about giant camps, because this is where you really see evidence of culture. The camps aren't random. They're arranged. Thought goes into them. The painted rocks are always on the north side. Always. I've checked dozens of camps. The north side, where the symbols are painted, seems to be significant. Maybe religious, maybe directional. I don't know. But it's consistent. The mammoths sleep in the center. Giants sleep around the perimeter. This is protective behavior. The giants form a defensive circle around their animals. They're putting themselves between danger and what they care about. That's not animal instinct. That's conscious choice. And the mammoth cheese. Oh gods, the mammoth cheese. You've seen the giant cheese wheels, yes? Everyone makes jokes about them, how impractically large they are. But think about what they represent. Cheese making is a complex process. You need to milk the mammoth, and that requires a trusting relationship between giant and mammoth. You need to know about cultures and fermentation. You need patience, because cheese takes time to age. You need knowledge passed down through generations. I tried giant cheese once. Terrible decision. Traded a fairly valuable book for a piece of it from a brave soul who'd stolen it from an abandoned camp. The cheese was rancid, absolutely foul. But you know what? Human cheese probably tastes terrible to giants too. Doesn't mean the making of it isn't sophisticated. The relationship between giants and mammoths, that's something most people don't understand. They think the mammoths are livestock, like cattle or sheep. They're not. The relationship is deeper than that. Symbiotic, ancient. Let me explain. Mammoths provide milk, which becomes cheese. They provide warmth on cold nights. Their presence is calming to giants. I've watched Thornheart sit beside his mammoths for hours, just sitting there with his hand on one side, not doing anything, just being together. That's companionship. That's emotional need being met. And what do giants provide? Protection, obviously. Mammoths are massive, but they're gentle. They're vulnerable to packs of wolves, to saber cats, to trolls. A giant with a club can defend them. Giants also guide them to food. Mammoths can't remember seasonal patterns the way giants can. The giants know where the best grazing is in each season. They lead the mammoths there. The giants also maintain the herds, keep them healthy. I've watched giants remove parasites from mammoths, tend to injuries, even help births. This relationship has existed for thousands of years, longer than Nords have been in Skyrim. Giants and mammoths have been together since before humans arrived here, before the Atmorans landed at Hazarik Head. This is ancient, primal, sacred, maybe. But here's the tragedy. The mammoths are dying out, fewer every year. I've been watching this happen for 4 decades. When I first came to Skyrim, you could see mammoth herds of 8, 10, sometimes 12. Now, 3 is common. 4 is lucky. I know of one giant who has only 2 mammoths left. 2. His entire herd reduced to a pair. Why are they dying? Lots of reasons. Humans hunt them for their tusks. Ivory is valuable. The climate is changing, getting colder, and mammoths need specific plants that are becoming scarce. Disease, probably. Inbreeding in the small populations. All these factors together, and mammoths are disappearing. And what happens to giants without mammoths? That's what haunts me. Because I've seen it. I've seen giants who've lost their herds. They don't get new ones. There aren't enough mammoths left. They just continue. Alone. Without purpose. Without companionship. I watched this happen 6 years ago. There's a camp southeast of here, down in the lowlands where the frost isn't as severe. A giant lived there with 3 mammoths. I'd been watching them for years. The mammoths were old. I could tell by how slowly they moved, how gray their fur had become. One winter, 2 of them died. I wasn't there when it happened, but I came upon the scene after. The giant had moved their bodies to the north side of his camp, the side with the painted symbols. He'd covered them with rocks. Burial, I think, or something like it. The 3rd mammoth lived another year, but it was old, so old. I watched it grow weaker, watched it struggle to stand some mornings, and the giant stayed with it, never left its side those last few weeks. When it finally died, the giant sat beside the body for 3 days. I watched through my farsight spell. 3 entire days and nights, just sitting there with his hand on the mammoth's side. When he finally stood up, he painted new symbols on the rock. I couldn't see exactly what, but they were different from before. More chaotic, more painful to look at, if that makes sense. That giant is still there. 6 years later. No mammoths, just him, alone. He doesn't paint anymore. I check on him sometimes, and he's always just sitting, or standing, or walking in small circles around his camp. He hasn't left, hasn't found new mammoths, hasn't joined another giant's group. He's just there, alone, waiting for nothing. That's when I started to understand. Giants aren't just losing their mammoths, they're losing everything. Their purpose, their companionship, their culture. Because you can't pass down knowledge when there's no one to teach. You can't maintain traditions when you're alone. Now, I need to tell you something that most scholars don't believe. Some refuse to even consider it. But I've spent 40 years studying giants, and I'm certain giants have language. Real language. Not just grunts and roars. Words. I know how this sounds. Everyone thinks giants are mute, that they only make sounds, not words. But they're wrong. I've heard it myself, documented it. The words are simple, yes, but they're words. It started about 30 years ago. I was watching a giant camp, closer than I usually get. Foolish, I know, but I was younger then. The giant was working with his mammoths, and I heard him make sounds. But not random sounds, specific vocalizations. And the mammoths responded, not just to tone, but to the specific sounds. I spent years after that listening, using farsight spells with amplification. Dangerous magic, very draining, but necessary. And I started to hear patterns. Words. I've documented at least 7 distinct words, maybe 8. I'm still not certain about the 8th. The clearest one is get. Sounds like get when they say it, but the meaning is obvious. I've heard giants say it to mammoths when they want them to move. Get, get, and the mammoths move. Go is another one. Go, used when a giant wants something to leave. I've heard giants say it to wolves, to saber cats, even to each other. Go. And whatever it's directed at usually leaves. No is fascinating because it's almost the same as our word. No. I've heard young giants reach for things they shouldn't, and the older giant says no, sharply. Teaching moment. Discipline. That's parenting. That's culture being transmitted. Come, or something close to it, k, used to call mammoths back, sometimes used between giants. K, k, and whatever's being called approaches. There's a sound that might mean
home or safe or something similar. Dumb. Giants say it when they return to their camps, when they settle down for the night. Dumb. Like they're announcing their home, or maybe stating that this place is safe. I'm not certain of the exact meaning, but the context is consistent. And names. I think they have names. I've heard giants use specific sound combinations when addressing specific mammoths. One mammoth always responds to Taram, another to Moga. Could be names, could be descriptions, but they're individual identifiers. That's
Sophisticated. What does this mean? Everything. Because language equals thought. Thought equals consciousness. Consciousness equals personhood. If giants have language, even simple language, they're not animals. They're people. Less complex people than us, yes. Like very young children, maybe. Simple thoughts expressed simply, but thoughts nonetheless. I presented these findings to the college 20 years ago. Do you know what they said? They said I was hearing what I wanted to hear, that I was anthropomorphizing. That's the word they used. Anthropomorphizing, making something human when it's not. But I'm not making giants human. I'm recognizing that they already are people, just different people than us. One scholar, Finis Gester, he's still here actually, he told me giants can't have language because they don't have the right mouth structure. I asked him if he'd ever examined a giant's mouth up close. He admitted he hadn't. Neither have I, to be fair, but I've observed enough to know they can make complex sounds. That's evidence enough for me. The academic community doesn't want to admit giants are people, because if they're people, then we're committing genocide. And that's uncomfortable. Easier to pretend they're monsters. Let me tell you about giant history, because they've been here longer than almost anyone. Giants are ancient. They've been in Skyrim since before the Nords arrived, before the Atmorans crossed the Sea of Ghosts, before Ysgramor and his 500 companions, before all of that. Giants were here first. There are Dwemer texts that mention giants. I found one in the Arcanium, The Architecture of Raldbthar, written by Thelwe Galain. Well, not written by her, but compiled by her from Dwemer sources. In one section, there's a passage about surface inhabitants. Most of it discusses Falmer, but there's a line about the tall ones who tend the horned beasts. That's giants and mammoths. The Dwemer knew about them, observed them, didn't consider them threats, just neighbors. Ancient Nord legends mention giants too. There's a tale in The Songs of the Return about Ysgramor's first winter in Skyrim. His people were starving, and they encountered a giant with mammoths. They almost attacked, but one of Ysgramor's sons, I forget which one, he stopped them. He'd noticed the giant had food, had shelter, had survived the winter. So instead of fighting, they watched, learned where the giant found food, learned how to survive Skyrim from the giants. That's not in most versions of the story. Most versions make Ysgramor and his people seem like they conquered Skyrim through strength alone. But the earliest version, the one in the archives that nobody reads, admits they learned from those already here, from the giants. Giants used to be everywhere, all across Skyrim. The plains near Whiterun were giant territory. The tundra around Winterhold, giant territory. The valleys of the Reach, giants. The forests of Falkreath, giants. They were the dominant large species. Thousands of them, probably. And now, I can count the number of giant camps in Skyrim on my hands. Maybe 40 camps? If each camp has 2 to 3 giants, that's less than 100 giants left in all of Skyrim. From thousands to less than 100 in just a few centuries. That's not decline. That's annihilation. What happened? Humans happened. The Nords arrived and needed land for their settlements. Giants were in the way. So the Nords pushed them out, killed the ones who resisted, took their territory, and the giants had nowhere to go. They're territorial, you understand. They don't adapt well to new locations. Their camps are carefully chosen for access to food, water, shelter. You can't just move a giant camp anywhere. So their territory shrank. They got pushed into the marginal lands, the places humans didn't want. The harsh tundra, the exposed plains, the rocky hills. And their population declined. Add to that the mammoth problem I already mentioned. Without mammoths, giants lose their primary food source, their companionship, their reason for existing. The mammoths dying accelerates the giants dying. It's all connected. And here's what really breaks my heart. I think the giants know. I think they're aware they're disappearing. There's evidence for this. The symbols have changed over the years. I've compared rock paintings from abandoned camps to active camps. The symbols are more desperate now, more chaotic, less ordered. Like the giants are expressing something that can't be expressed properly. Grief, maybe. Fear. Awareness of the end. And the behavior changes. Giants are more isolated now. Camps are farther apart. I used to see evidence of communication between camps. Giants would travel to visit other camps. Not often, but regularly. Haven't seen that in years. Now they stay in their own territories, isolated, alone. The giant I mentioned at the start, the one standing in the blizzard, I think he knew. I think he was standing there aware that he might be one of the last, standing in the snow like a monument to something dying. That's what haunts me, the loneliness of it, because I understand loneliness. I'm old. Everyone I trained with at the college is dead. Everyone I adventured with is dead. Everyone I loved is dead. I'm the last one left who remembers those days, the last one who knows those stories. When I die, those memories die with me. No one will remember my friends as they really were. There'll be names in books, if that. That's what's happening to the giants. But worse, because at least I can write my memories down. I can tell stories to students, even if they don't listen. Giants can't do that. They have no written language, no bards to sing their tales, no scholars to preserve their culture. When the last giant dies, everything they were disappears with them. Forever. Completely. As if they never existed. And nobody cares. Nobody except me. And now, maybe you. You know what we lose. When giants disappear, we lose living history. Giants remember Skyrim before humans. They remember what this land was like in its natural state. They know things about survival here that we never learned. They know where the old paths are, the safe routes through the wilderness that have existed for thousands of years. They know weather patterns, animal migrations, plant cycles. All of that knowledge dies with them. We lose a unique perspective on existence. Giants live simply. They don't have our complexity, our politics, our wars, our greed. They have mammoths and camps and each other. That's enough for them. There's wisdom in that simplicity. Wisdom we dismiss because we think complexity equals superiority. We lose a connection to the land. Giants are part of Skyrim in a way humans never will be. They've been here since the mountains were formed, since the glaciers carved the valleys. They're as much a part of this place as the stones and the snow. When they're gone, Skyrim becomes less than it was. And we lose the opportunity to understand that personhood doesn't require complexity, that consciousness exists on a spectrum, that language doesn't need to be sophisticated to convey meaning, that culture doesn't need to be elaborate to be real. Giants prove all of this, and we're killing them before we can learn from them. Compare giants to other dying cultures in Tamriel. The Snow Elves, the Falmer before the Dwemer destroyed them. They had scholars. They had texts. We can study them. The Aelids in Cyrodiil, gone but not forgotten. They left ruins full of information. The Dwemer disappeared entirely, but they left everything. Their cities, their books, their machines. We can understand them even though they're gone. Giants will leave nothing. Some rocks with symbols nobody can read. Some camps that will erode in a generation. That's all. No texts, no artifacts of value. Nothing that will make future scholars say, "We should study this." They'll be a footnote. Giants once lived in Skyrim. They're extinct now. Moving on. That's unacceptable to me. It should be unacceptable to everyone. But it's not. Because giants never fit into human society. They never traded with us, never fought alongside us in wars, never contributed to our culture in ways we recognize. So we don't value them. We value what's useful to us. Giants aren't useful, so they don't matter. I've tried to tell people this. I've written papers, given lectures, presented evidence. Nobody listens. The college considers my giant research a quirk. Old Vane and his giants, they say with affection and dismissal in equal measure. The Jarl of Winterhold won't hear it, because giants sometimes kill travelers, and that's bad for trade. The common people don't care, because they've been told all their lives that giants are monsters. I'm shouting into a void. And when I die, my research dies with me. Because I haven't found a student interested in continuing it. They all want to study the Dwemer or the dragons or the ancient Nords. Nobody wants to study something that's still alive, still dying, still able to be saved if anyone cared enough. But let me tell you what 40 years of watching giants has taught me. Because it's not just about them. It's about everything. Life, existence, how we see the world. Giants taught me patience. They move slowly. Everything they do is deliberate. When a giant paints a symbol, he might spend an hour on it, getting it exactly right. No rushing, No frustration. Just careful, patient work. I used to rush through everything. Hurry through ruins, speed read books, push students through lessons. Watching giants taught me that slow can be better. That taking time to do something right has value. They taught me that simplicity isn't inferiority. Giants don't have what we have. No cities, no politics, no grand architecture. But they have everything they need. Food, shelter, companionship, purpose. They're not trying to conquer anything, or prove anything, or achieve anything beyond survival and care. That's enough. In our complicated world, with our complicated problems, there's something profound about a life reduced to essentials. They taught me that loneliness is universal. I thought loneliness was a human thing, a consequence of complex social needs. But giants feel it too. I've watched Thornheart stand at the edge of his camp, looking north, toward where another camp used to be. The other camp is abandoned now, those giants dead or moved on. But Thornheart still looks that direction, like he's hoping to see them again. That's loneliness. That's the ache of connection lost. If giants feel it with their simple minds and simple lives, then it must be fundamental, built into consciousness itself. They taught me that we miss what we don't look for. Everyone in Skyrim has seen giants, but nobody sees them. They see monsters, obstacles, things to avoid. I see people living their lives as best they can in a world that's killing them. The difference is attention, real attention. Looking without assumption, watching without judgment. How much else are we missing because we don't really look? And they taught me that witnessing matters. Someone needs to see. Someone needs to remember, even if no one else cares, even if nothing changes. Someone needs to bear witness to what's being lost. That's become my purpose these last few years. I'm not going to save the giants. It's too late for that. But I can watch them. I can remember them. I can tell their story to anyone who'll listen. When they're gone, someone will have known them as they truly were. Not as monsters, not as myths, but as people. There's a giant I've been watching for 15 years. Thornheart, I call him. He's old now. I can see it in how he moves. Slower than he used to be. More careful. He has 2 mammoths left. They're old too. One of them limps. I've watched them together through every season for 15 years. I know their routines. I know that Thornheart wakes first, always, just before dawn. I know he checks the mammoths before he does anything else. I know he paints new symbols every full moon. I know he sits with his hand on the limping mammoth's side every evening, like he's trying to comfort it. Or maybe like he's saying goodbye a little bit each day. When Thornheart dies, those mammoths will die too. They're too old to be adopted by another giant. And when the mammoths die, that's it. One more giant bloodline ended. One more fragment of giant culture erased. And I'll be the only one who knew him. The only one who watched his life. The only one who can say, he was here, and his life mattered, and he was gentle and patient and persistent. That's what watching giants has taught me, that every life matters. Every existence has value, not because of what it achieves or creates or contributes to progress, but simply because it is. Because consciousness happened. Because awareness emerged. Because a creature experienced the world and felt things and had preferences and made choices. That's enough. That's everything. I look at Thornheart and I see myself. Old, alone, doing what I've always done because I don't know what else to do. Waiting for an end I know is coming. Hoping someone notices I existed. That's not unique to giants or to old men. That's universal. We're all Thornheart. We're all standing in the snow, wondering if anyone sees us. The fire's burning low. Look at that. We've talked the whole night away. I didn't mean to go on for so long, but you let me, and I'm grateful for that. It helps, having someone listen. The storm's past, I see. The sky's clearing. You can see stars. It's late, though. Very late. Or early, depending on how you think about it. Before you go, I want you to do something for me. Next time you see a giant, don't just run. Don't just avoid it. Stop. At a safe distance, obviously. They're still dangerous if you threaten them. But stop and watch. Really watch. Look at what he's doing. Look at how he moves. Look at how he interacts with his mammoths. Look for the painted symbols. Look for evidence of thought, of intention, of personhood. You might not see it the first time. Might take several observations. But if you look long enough, really look, you'll see what I see. A person. Simple, yes. Different from us, absolutely. But a person living a life that matters to them. And once you see that, you can't unsee it. You'll carry it with you. And maybe you'll tell someone else. And maybe they'll look too. That's how change happens. Not through grand gestures or academic papers. Through individuals choosing to see differently. One person at a time, learning to recognize personhood in unexpected places. It's slow. Probably too slow to save the giants. But it matters anyway. I'm going to keep watching them, for however many years I have left. I'll watch Thornheart and his mammoths. I'll document the symbols. I'll record the words I hear. I'll bear witness to their existence. And when I'm gone, this will all be here in the Arcanium. Books full of observations, drawings of symbols, records of camps. Maybe someday someone will read them. Maybe someday someone will care. Or maybe they won't. Maybe giants will be forgotten entirely. Just another extinct creature that once walked Skyrim. But I'll have known them. I'll have seen them. And in whatever way that matters in the grand scheme of things, I'll have honored their existence by paying attention to it. Thank you for listening. Really, I know it's a lot. Old man going on about giants for hours, but it matters to me. They matter to me. And now, maybe they matter to you too, even a little bit. Help yourself to more tea if you need it for the walk back. The stairs ice over at night. Be careful. And come back when you can. I'm always here, always willing to talk. About giants or anything else. The company's nice, the fire's warm, the tea's hot, and the stories, well, I have more stories than I have time left to tell them. Safe travels, friend. Watch for giants. Really watch. You might see something everyone else misses. And remember, the giant standing alone in the blizzard. He's still there. I checked yesterday. Still standing. Still waiting. Still existing in a world that doesn't see him. But I see him. And now you know he's there too. That's something. That's not nothing. Go on now. Dawn's coming. I can see the light starting on the horizon. Beautiful, isn't it? Skyrim in the early morning. Cold and harsh and beautiful. The giants see this every day, have seen it for thousands of years, will see it for however many days they have left. Someone should witness that. Someone should remember. I'm glad you were here tonight. Come back soon.